If you were looking for a perfectly polished demo of Eurofly, this is not that. I definitely messed up the taxiing at the end, but I decided I was just going to keep it as it is, and I hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Eurofly. Training.
Good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever, friends. It's Sal, and I'm going to make a video that's very different from any that I've ever made before. A couple weeks ago on stream, we were chatting, and Eurofly came up, and Eurofly is a flight simulator and world atlas for blind people. And Hank said, how the hell does a flight simulator work for the blind? I don't actually know if that's the phrasing he used, but that was the premise. So I decided I'm going to make a demo to show you. And I'm just going to preface this with the fact that Eurofly version 3, which is the version I'll be playing, is in beta. So some of the things aren't fully implemented yet, and there are some random bugs that may crop up from time to time. I'm going to do my best to not get bugs in the demo. Also, I only use the flight simulation portion of Eurofly. I've never played with the Atlas. I know some players use the Atlas to look around before they actually take their flight, to kind of see what they're going to be flying over, what places they'll pass, but I've never done that. We are currently sitting on the main menu. You'll notice that when it launched, it said training. I'm going to show you the main menu options, even though we are ultimately going to go into training here in a moment.
World map exploration.
This is the world map. Like I said, I never used the thing, but you can go in here. It's a world atlas. You can walk around, see what's there, see cities, see points of interest, view all the airports, lakes, all the geographical things.
Profiles.
Profiles. You need a profile to play Eurofly. Whether you have an online profile or an offline profile doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. The online profile has access, well, not yet, because they're not fully implemented yet, will have access to more things, charter flights and business flights and other types of flights other than training, and free flights are only available in online mode, so I made an online profile for myself. But if you don't wish to play against other players and compete on leaderboards, or have access to all of the different flight types, you just want to experiment and play around a little bit, you can do offline mode.
Speaker test.
This is a speaker test. So how Eurofly works, well, it works in a few ways. It is self-voicing to a certain extent. It also uses SAPI, or SAPI, or however you pronounce that, which is the Microsoft Speech API. And it uses positional audio to indicate where we're going to turn on taxiways and runways and things. So if you're watching this and you're not wearing headphones, I recommend you pause the video, go grab a set of headphones and put them on so you can get the full experience. Just to make sure yours are aligned correctly, I'm actually going to run the speaker test, so I'll hit enter.
Left. Right.
Speaker test.
My speakers are perfectly aligned, so that's great. We'll move on.
Settings.
There are a lot of settings in here you can configure. I've configured these the way that I like them. You can set your home airport, which at the moment doesn't seem to affect anything. Ultimately, I'm not sure what it will affect in the future. It used to be in Eurofly version 2 that your home airport was where you were basically defaulted to if you hadn't used a plane before. But in Eurofly 2, you could actually pick whatever plane you wanted. In Eurofly 3, you have to go through qualification to get planes. And then you can pick where you place the planes after you qualify for a plane. So I'm not really sure what the home airport does for us.
Add-ons.
There are add-ons for the game. They don't currently exist, but players have the ability to record their own air traffic control voices and flight attendant voices, and then you can download those voices in whatever language you choose. All of my stuff's only going to be English, but there are... Eurofly is being and has been translated into several languages. There's Czech and a Slovak version. I'm thinking somebody's probably translating it into Spanish. I know for sure somebody's translating it into Chinese. So you can download add-ons for these different air traffic controllers and flight attendants, whether somebody records additional English ones or whether you want to use other languages if you happen to be multilingual.
About the program.
There's an About section. It basically just states that Eurofly is actually a real-life airline.
Exit.
And there's exit. We're definitely not going to hit that.
Training.
Here we go. We're going to hit training. We're just going to get right into this thing. I'm going to do my best to explain as I go. Every bit of this is controlled through my keyboard.
Eurofly free. Items view list. Training window. Practice flights combo box 1 collapsed.
So we land on this thing that says practice flights. We're not going to even worry about that. The practice flights are there after you complete training on a certain aircraft. If you want to go over something with that aircraft, you can go and do a practice flight. They're not rated. They don't count against you if you do something bad. They don't count for you if you complete the flight successfully. They're just there if you're struggling, say, with landing on runways or taxiing around an airport. You can take a practice flight with a plane you're already familiar with to practice those things. I'm going to Shift Tab.
Training combo box Saab 340 Iceland isoporter bias collapsed.
Yes, we're going to go on the Saab 340, which is at an Iceland airport I'm not even going to try to pronounce. So I'm going to press Enter here.
Eurofly free. Items view list. Euro Iceland for sector. Dashboard window.
I'm on my dashboard. This is where I control all of the aspects of my plane. Now, right now, I can't do anything. The plane's off. Every system on this plane is off. The first thing I have to turn on is my battery. So I will press Control-Shift-B to turn on my battery. There's a battery. All right. I'm going to turn on some lights. So I do Shift-D.
Strobe lights on.
Shift-S.
Cabin lights on.
Shift-K.
Taxi lights
and
on.
Shift-L.
Landing lights on.
Everything's illuminated. We're doing great. I don't know why those are the key commands for the lights. I just know that they are. I'm going to turn on my transponder with Control-Shift-T.
Transponder on.
And my radio with Control-Shift, well, you'd think it would be R, but it's not. It's Control-Shift-F.
Radio on.
Hey, it's all staticky. Nobody wants static. If I press 9, it will show me the frequencies that are nearby that I can tune to that will actually get me somewhere other than Staticville.
Combo box isoporter ground control 118.8 collapsed.
Ground control is the one I want, so I'm going to escape out of this and press Alt-F.
Set frequency. Set frequency as planned.
And what did it say? 118.9, I think?
Dashboard window.
Nope.
118.9.
That's not what it said.
Combo box isoporter ground control 118.8 collapsed.
Oh,
Dashboard window.
118.8.
Set frequency. Isoporter ground control. Dashboard window.
SK734. Welcome to our airport.
All right. We are now Sierra Kilo 734. I'm going to turn on my computer with Control-Shift-K.
Computer on. Fuel low.
Yeah, it's going to yell at me about fuel.
Fuel low. Computer off.
So I need to refuel my plane. So let's, Control-Enter will bring up the airplane properties. We're not going to look at all of these. There's a lot of information here about the plane. I know this plane fairly well, so I don't look at the properties as much anymore. But I don't remember, because I don't look at it very often, the maximum capacity of my fuel tank. And yes, I'm that pilot who fills his plane up to maximum fuel for every flight. So I'll go Control-Enter.
Combo box pilot on.
And I can actually hit F and it'll jump me down to the fuel.
Flap positions 0/4.
Nope.
Fuel tank capacity 3637L.
3637. Okay, so I need to actually request a refueler from the control tower. If I press F1, it brings up a list of requests I can make to ground control.
Combo box board asking for boarding collapsed.
We're not going to board passengers. In training flights, you actually can't.
Engines asking for permission to start the engines.
Well, we don't have fuel. We can't start the engines without fuel.
Fuel asking for fuel.
Fuel asking for fuel. Here we go.
Set fuel amount as planned.
And there's a dialogue here, and we'll just put in our fuel amount.
SK734. We've dispatched the refueler for you.
Great. They've dispatched the refueler. That's exactly what I needed. While we're waiting, we can make a flight plan. We don't have to just sit here and wait idle for the refueler to arrive. If I press Control F8, it's going to bring up a list of airports arranged in order from closest to farthest away. And the first airport in the list is going to be the one that we're currently at. I could... Ooh, the fuel's here. I could set our current airport as the destination. We could just take off, circle around the airport for a while. I don't want to do that. I actually want to fly to another airport. So I'm going to press Control F8.
Combo box Iceland isoporter bias 0 km collapsed.
And I know which airport I want. I want...
Iceland Faroe Islands Iceland port pin 419 km 24 right 29 minutes.
This one that's 400...
Port pin 419 km.
419 km away. So if I press space, it will add this airport to my navigation panel. We'll talk about the navigation panel later. We don't need it as much right now. We'll need it when it's time to land. Oh wait, I can't add it yet. Oh my god. I need to turn on my computer. Control-Shift-K.
Computer on.
Now I can add that thing to my navigation panel.
Iceland port of Florida pin 419 km 24 right 29 minutes. Added to navigation.
Add it with the spacebar, hit escape.
window.
Now, we need to request our flight plan from the control tower, so we will again go F1.
Combo box 4.
And I don't have to arrow down through this entire menu. I know that the key I need, or the option I need is plan, so I can just hit P,
Plan I want to create a flight plan.
and I'll hit return.
Call sign is red only SKMTF 734.
Call sign is SKMT734. The SK is a part of every call sign. MT, I assume, has something to do with the fact that I'm a training flight. I genuinely don't know. Now, I can tab through this list because if I tab over,
Select destination combo box Iceland port of Florida pin collapsed.
our destination's already pre-filled because I went through the control F8 and selected an airport. I could, however, put an airport in here.
Filter edit blank.
There's a box here, a filter edit, where I can type the name of an airport if I know where I want to fly to.
Flight description edit blank.
You can add a flight description, it's optional. I've never filled one in my entire existence.
Requesting combo box navigated flight collapsed.
Requesting navigated flight. Now, navigated flights are one of the things in the beta that actually do not function. So I'm going to change this
Direct flight.
to a direct flight. Sometimes ATC won't grant us a direct flight, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I'll tab again.
My waypoints combo box port of Florida collapsed.
That's showing my waypoints. I don't need to worry about that because waypoints don't really matter for what we're doing here.
Request flight button.
And here we go, request flight button.
Dashboard window.
SK734. Flight plan accepted. Set transponder to 8557.
8557. So I press Alt-T to bring up my transponder.
Set transponder code. Set
8557.
8557. Dashboard window.
There we go. Now, we have a flight plan set. We can start our engines. All of the engine controls are page up, page down, home, end, and the delete key. Used in conjunction with Shift, Control, and Alt sometimes. I have 2 engines on this plane, so if I'm granted permission to start my engines, which every once in a while you're not, I will press page up and page down to start. Oh, I guess I should put on my seatbelt. Control B is what we want here.
Seatbelt fastened.
Phenomenal. Now, I guess it didn't really matter. I didn't have to do that first, but it will eventually start whining at me to fasten my seatbelt if I hadn't done that. So I'm going to press F1. I'm going to
Combo
go
box
down
port asking for boarding
here.
collapsed. Engines asking for permission to start the engines.
This is what I want. Asking for permission to start the engine. Press return.
Dashboard window.
SK734. Do not start the engines.
Well, fine. I guess we won't start the engines yet. We're just going to give that a minute and then we'll try it again. So I'm going to, in the meantime, just press S to see what direction I'm facing.
East.
Okay, I'm facing east. Good, that's the direction I want to face. I'm in what's called the main area of the airport. I don't really want to spend a lot of time in this video talking about how the airports are set up because this isn't really a full-fledged explanation video of Eurofly. It's just I'm showing you how blind people do flight simming in Eurofly. I know other blind pilots who play Microsoft Flight Simulator with a bunch of add-ons. I don't. I suppose I could. I just haven't decided that I want to spend the money to buy actual Microsoft Flight Simulator and get the add-ons that I would need to make it fully accessible to me. Plus, Eurofly 3 is not, I guess, as realistic as, say, Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it's more realistic than Eurofly 2 was. Thank God for that. I'm going to see if they'll let me start my engines now.
Engines asking for permission to start dashboard window.
SK734. You have permission to start
Alright.
the engines.
Page up and page down.
Starting.
Once these go, we're going to turn on some more systems, because this plane is definitely not ready to go yet. Here come our engines. Those other planes you hear periodically, those are just ambient background planes because we're at an airport and there's lots of planes here. Engines are almost ready.
Ready.
Hey, ready! Alright, I'm going to turn on. And these are just Control, Shift, and then various keys. I'm not necessarily going to tell you what the keystrokes are. If you want them, let me know. I'll give them to you.
Temperature control on. Storm radar on. TCAS on. Ventilation on. Stall indication on. GPWS on. Sensor on.
And I'm going to set my desired internal cabin
temperature,
temperature 22, because I like it warm.
Temperature set.
Alright, this takes a little bit of time to heat up to 22. I'm not necessarily worried about it. It'll do it when it's ready. Now, we need to request a runway. And then we're going to talk about airport properties. So I will hit F1,
Combo box 4 asking for boarding.
and I will say...
Runway asking for runway assignment.
Wait, before I
window.
do that, I want to check one thing. I want to press Control-Shift-Y.
Starting system check.
I should probably always run a system check on my airplane before we take off. And then if I go Control-Enter and go into my airplane's properties,
Combo box.
there's a lot of stuff in here, but what we care about is a few lines down.
SKMTF 734 training flight Saab 340. Transport lane propeller lane 2 certified. Pushback required. Condition 100%. Last system check. Just now. System check. All systems are working correctly.
All systems are working correctly. Great. That's what I wanted. All right.
Dashboard window.
Now we can request
Combo
our
box 4
runway.
Runway asking for runway assignment. Dashboard window.
SK734. You've been assigned runway 08. You can taxi.
I can taxi, but where the hell is runway 08? Fortunately, we can check. Just like Control-Enter brings us airplane properties, Shift-Enter brings us the properties of the airport we are either currently landed on or the airport we are in range of. Not necessarily the airport that you have set as your destination. I found that out the hard way the other day when I was told to go to a runway, and then I went to the airport properties and couldn't find the runway because it was an airport that I was my destination, but it wasn't the airport whose controlled space I was in, so that's important. So we'll hit Shift-Enter,
Combo box.
and then it said runway 08, so I'm not going to look at all these properties with you. I'm just going to go down to runway 08.
Desktop above bit round approach. Airport runway 08 west advance 08 advance west east advance 08 Delta 400 100.
Entrance 08 is off of taxiway Delta at 400 and
Run advance 08 Delta 400 100.
100. Okay, so basically what that means is I need to go north to 400 and east to 100. I'm already facing east, so we'll get to 100 first, and then it'll start pinging at me to go to Delta, and I will turn, and the way you turn is we use our left and right arrows. I'm going to use my shift left arrow to increase my wheel angle by 10 degrees each time, so that my plane will turn at a decent rate and I can actually get there before Delta goes and just passes me on by.
Dashboard.
I need to release my parking brakes, so we're going to hit B.
Parking brakes off.
And we're going to hit Alt Home. What that's going to do is put our plane in its maximum ground throttle speed. There are two throttle settings on this plane. It's got a flight mode and a taxi mode. We're in taxi mode right now. So when I hit Alt Home, my plane's going to begin accelerating. I can monitor my speed with R. When I hit 20-ish kilometers per hour, I'm going to lock it off with Control-Delete so that I don't go any faster and I also don't lose any speed. We're just going to roll on down the taxiway till we get to... Shit, where am I going? Oh, runway 80. 08. Runway 08.
Combo box. SK top 5 public with hot pivot round approach. Airport runway 08 26 1399 M. Advance 08. Advance 08 Delta 400.
Yes, runway 08. So the thing about runways is you always add a 0 to the end of it, so to get the degrees that you need to turn to. So we're going to turn to 80 degrees once we get there. So let's go and taxi for a while.
Throttle reset 5.
Get some speed under us here.
5. 6.
I'm just hitting R to
8.
see where we're at here.
11.
By the way, I know I don't have any video for this YouTube video,
15.
but Eurofly doesn't have
17.
video.
19. 19. Choke off throttle reset 1. 20.
That beeping off to our left means that I am... There's a taxiway we don't need. That beeping is the ground sensor. I'm going to actually turn that off.
Sensor off.
We don't really need it. I know how to navigate this airport. I'm slightly off center. That sensor will beep faster the further away from the center of the runway you get, and eventually you'll just...
Delta.
355. 355. 355. 356. 357. 358. 358. 359. 359. 304.
So how I did that is I shift and left arrowed until it was 50 degrees, or 50, yeah, I had banked 50 degrees. Every ping that you heard, those louder pings, were the...
SK734. Switch your radio to frequency 119.7.
Hold on. more power to anybody who does demos, because this is actually really hard to explain while we're going. So those pings you heard were every 10 degrees I turned, and then I can check my actual heading with S. When I got close to north, I hit G twice to zero out the banking of my wheels, and then realigned to actually get north. So I need to switch frequencies. If I hit space, it will replay the last transmission from the tower, thank God.
SK734. Switch your radio to frequency 119.7.
119.7, okay.
Set frequency as planned.
08.
ISO border motion control. Dashboard window.
Now, before we can go on to 08, which is very patiently beeping at us and letting us know where it is, I have to actually ask approach control for permission.
Combo box center asking for permission. Enter the runway collapse.
Permission to enter the runway. Here we go.
08.
Dashboard window.
SK734. You're permitted to enter the runway.
I'm gonna bank my wheels before I start speeding up, just because that's how I do it.
08.
That little bring that you're hearing, that means that something isn't level. In this case, it's our wheels. It could also be the nose of the plane for altitude. That's very helpful, because I can't tell you the number of times I've thought I was in another window that wasn't the Eurofly window, and down arrowed or up arrowed, which is even worse, and then all of a sudden you plow into the ground, because previous versions of Eurofly didn't have the bank indicators, so thank God for bank indicator. I'm going to get onto the runway, and then we're going to check a few things in our airplane properties.
Throttle reset 5.
08. 08.
Tilt off throttle reset 1.
08.
5, 60, 70,
81.
08.
50, 85.
too far.
08. 08.
83. 82. 82.
08.
81. 81. 81.
08.
80. Minus 0. 80.
There we go.
08.
And eventually we'll actually be on the runway. This just takes a minute because I'm traveling incredibly cautiously slow so that I can talk to you a little bit as we travel towards...
Runway 0826.
Here's the
Top reset
runway. Let's stop the plane. And I stopped the plane by just going Alt-End to set my throttle to 0, and then we just lost a little momentum and we stopped. I'm going to go Control-Enter to Airplane Properties. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. I just want to make sure that everything is turned on that I need on. So if I hit End, it puts me at the bottom of the list.
Auto altitude inactive.
Auto Altitude inactive.
Auto course inactive.
Auto Course inactive. I'm up arrowing through these.
Auto speed inactive.
Okay, Auto Speed inactive. Auto Speed doesn't work in Eurofly 3 at the moment, so I'm not even going to bother with that. I'm just going to set my speed the way I always have.
Auto navigation off.
Auto navigation off. We will turn auto navigation on once we're airborne to set course for our destination airport.
Audio navigation off.
Audio navigation off. I never use audio navigation. It plays a tone so that you can line up with your destination airport, but I never have used that feature. I have all the speech features that work perfectly fine for my needs.
Steering/nose angle indication on.
Steering and nose angle indication on. Those were those little brings that you heard to let us know that something wasn't level.
GPWS on.
GPWS is the ground proximity warning system. I'm actually going to turn that off when we get ready to land because it gets very, very picky. Like, I'll descend. You want to be 20 meters or less above ground to actually land correctly. And I've descended down to 150 just to kind of start my initial descent, and it says collision with the ground imminent, and I don't like it, so I turn it off when we're starting our descent phase.
Stall indication on.
Stall indication on? Yes, I definitely want to know if a stall is imminent.
TCAS on.
TCAS, or TCAS, the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, is on. It doesn't do anything right now, but I want to get into the habit of turning all the things on while I can get away with errors here and there, just because I know there will be a time when there will be planes intersecting my flight path, and it'll tell one of us to climb and one of us to descend so we don't hit each other. That's what the TCAS system does.
Storm radar on.
Storm radar on.
Temperature control 7/22C.
It's still warming up to 22C. It's only at 7. This is not great.
Cabin pressurization off.
Oh, cabin pressurization is off. Again, I don't know that I need it,
Dashboard window.
but
Cabin pressurization on.
eventually there will come a time when I will need it. I'm glad I'm going through this list.
Taxi lights on.
Taxi lights on.
Status monitor off.
Status monitor. I don't use...
Taxi cabin lights on. Slow cabin temperature. Storm TCAS on. Storm temp cabin pressurization ventilation on.
Okay, ventilation on.
Landing lights on.
Landing lights,
Strobe lights on.
strobe lights,
Cabin lights on.
cabin lights,
Taxi lights on.
taxi lights, all the lights are on.
Status monitor off.
Status monitor's off. The status monitor is a component of Eurofly that feeds data to a braille display, if you have a braille display, so that you don't have to keep querying all of this information with your keyboard and letting your screen reader's speech read it to you. I don't have a braille display, so I don't use the status monitor.
Sensor off.
Sensor off, yes, because I got tired of it beeping at me.
Atlas off.
Atlas off, again, I've never really used the Atlas.
Communicator off.
Communicator off. You can communicate with other players in online mode. Since we're demoing, I didn't want to get caught up in conversations with other players. Once we're level and on our way, I'm going to pause the video because you don't need to watch a full, long flight. I'll come back when we're starting our approach and descent.
Transponder 8557.
Those are all the things I want to check, so I'm going to escape out of here.
Dashboard window.
I need to set my plane to flight mode because taxi mode will not get us the thrust we need to reach takeoff velocity before we reach the end of the runway. So Shift Delete is the ticket here.
Flight mode.
Flight mode. It cuts itself off often. It is in fact flight mode. I need to set our flaps to 1. I know this because of my airplane properties, so Control F.
Set flap position. Set flap position at plane.
We'll say 1, and we'll say return.
Dashboard window.
Flaps set.
Flaps are set. I'm going to tilt my nose up to 10 degrees with Shift down arrow. There we go. That lovely tone that lets us know something's not stable, or level rather. And then F1, and we're going to go all the way down to the bottom,
Take asking for takeoff clearance.
asking for takeoff clearance.
Dashboard window.
SK734, you are cleared to take off.
Alt home,
Throttle preset 5.
maximum thrust. And I never even bother to monitor my speed at this juncture. I just let the plane do its thing. Eventually we'll take off. We're gonna hear a solid tone underneath us once we take off. That solid tone is the tone that indicates we are over a runway. You'll hear it here in just a moment. I hope.
167 flaps at 1.
Yeah, we're almost at takeoff speed. You're also going to start hearing altitude numbers very rapidly increase.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100.
Takeoff successful, so I got to put my flaps in, so Control F, 0.
0. Dashboard window.
And then I also need to raise my,
200.
SK734, climb to 70.
set my landing gear in with Control G.
300.
And he said climb to 70. You add a
Right.
0 to whatever altitude you're given, so we go
400.
Alt Z for altitude, 700.
700. Dashboard window.
And we let the plane just climb itself to the altitude that he
500.
specified. Once we hit 700, I'm going to kick in the auto navigation and let the plane fly us to the other Iceland airport. The tone for the runway you may not have actually heard because the altitude was yelling at us about our altitude.
SK734, turn to 107.
So he says turn to 107, and I'm going to follow his
altitude.
directions just because, you know, good habits. So Alt
Set
S,
course. Set course at plane.
107.
Iceland window. Iceland C.
Okay, we're at 107. That tone that reminds you of an airplane like call light is the tone that indicates that you have reached either the altitude or course that you have set. Now, if I press Control N, it tells me what my destination is, how far away it is, and the time till we reach it.
409 km over 49 minutes.
49 minutes. I'm definitely not going to make you all sit here for 49 minutes of me flying over Iceland and the Iceland Sea. I'm going to come back when it's time to start talking about how the heck do we land this thing. So I'll see you soon. I'm back. We're not quite in range of our destination airport. It's 75 km away. We're about 88 km away. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how landing actually is going to work. Once I get into range of the airport, I'm going to request a runway using the F1 menu. It's going to tell me the runway that it wants me to land at, and then I'm going to go into the airport properties with Shift Enter, and I'm going to find, I'll Shift Tab once, and I will get to a list of waypoints. Each runway has 4 waypoints. I will program these 4 waypoints into my auto navigation system, which in theory will allow me to be lined up perfectly by the time I hit all 4 of the waypoints, so that I can capture the ILS for my runway and land on the thing. It doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes I have to do a little bit of manual flying around to target the runway specifically, but we're going to give it the old college try. I'm also now...
77 km. 150.
Yeah, 77. I'm going to start descending down to 150. Let me just check one thing. So I need to talk about the Z key and the period key. Z tells you your height above sea level,
701.
and period tells you your height above ground.
SK734,
hold on.
welcome to our airspace.
Okay, so Z
701.
and period, the height above the ground.
701 above ground.
This is one of the reasons I chose Iceland. It is all flat and at sea level. So I'm going to descend with Alt Z. We're going to go down to 150 meters.
150. 150. Dashboard middle.
And the GPWS is going to start yelling at me in a little while, and when it does, I'm going to turn it off. While we're descending, though,
Combo box approach asking for approach nearest collapsed. Runway asking for runway assignment.
I'm going to ask for a runway assignment.
Dashboard window.
SK734, you've been
500.
assigned runway 18.
18. So again, this runway is going to be on a heading of 180. In this case, due
400.
south. Well, that's kind of cute. Okay, so we're going to go into...
300. Collision with the ground image.
Yeah. GPWS, you're so overly cautious. Shut up.
GPWS 200.
I don't need all that. I can measure my distance from the ground myself. So we're going to go Shift Enter for the airport
Combo
properties.
box pilot top.
We're going to Shift Tab,
Combo box waypoints collapsed.
and we're going to find the waypoints for runway 18.
08, 60, 0P, 0C, 0D, 18, 18, 18, 18, 18, 59 km, 13 left.
And we put them in descending order from D to A. So space.
Added to navigation. 18C, 61 added to navigation. 18D, 16 added to navigation. 18A, 16 added to navigation.
And you'll notice that as soon as I added 18 Delta into my navigation, I started turning. So what I should be doing now...
55 km, 18D, 5 minutes.
Yep, I'm lined up for 18D. When I get about 6 km away from 18D, I'm going to start slowing this bad boy down, or I'm going to overshoot my airport by so much, because we are currently traveling at the astonishing rate
556.
of 556 kph, which I guess isn't super astonishing, but considering our current landing speed, according to airplane properties,
Currently.
whoops,
Current landing speed, 194 km.
is 194 km. We got a lot of slowing down to do. But I don't want to slow down too early because it will make it take a really long time to get to the airport. I'm actually not going to record all of this flying to these waypoints. You just want to make sure to hit them in order D, C, B, A. By the time you get almost to A, I'm actually going to turn off auto navigation. And in theory, I should then be lined up perfectly for the ILS for the runway, and then we'll hit Control S. It should say 18, and then we'll hit Enter. It'll capture the ILS, and then we'll just coast the rest of the way in, and then I'll talk to you about how we taxi to the main area of the airport to complete this flight and end the demo. But again, I'm not going to make you sit here while I fly through all the waypoints, so when I start slowing down, I'll come back and walk you through that process. Alright, the time has come to start slowing down, so I'm going to hit Alt-End and then Control-Home to very quickly set the throttle to 0 and then back to preset 1, so we still have some thrust.
Throttle preset 0. Throttle preset 1.
Because we definitely don't want it to sit at 0 or we'll have insufficient lift, we will crash into the ground, and with this training, you need to fly a certain amount of kilometers and have a certain number of successful takeoffs and landings. If you crash, it resets your progress to 0, so I'm going to keep a close eye on my... Oh, wow. We just made a bunch of little minor course corrections.
431.
Keep a close eye on my speed.
490.
I'm going to set it down to 300-ish.
407. 395.
I don't need to set it to my landing speed until we get a little bit closer to the airport.
369. 1.7 km, 18D, 0 minutes.
And we're only approaching 18D now.
352. 341.
And it's going to tell us
332.
flyover point reached here in a moment.
324. 319. 316. 311.
Yes, I'm checking my speed like a...
Flyover point reached.
Choke off throttle reset 2. 303.
Checking my speed like a paranoid person, and then I choked it off with Control-Delete. So we'll stay at 303 until we get to C and start heading towards B, and then I'll set my speed to landing speed, and I'll let out the landing gear. I did one time forget to extend my landing gear and then just totally landed, except I didn't land because I didn't have any wheels and I crashed. I also forgot to ask the airport if it was okay if I approached.
Combo box approach escape for approach nearest collapsed. Dashboard window.
SK734. You can begin approach.
Well, thank God I can begin approach, because I began approach like, 5-6 minutes ago when we first turned towards waypoint Delta. We are now on our way to waypoint Charlie.
1.1 km 18 0 minutes.
Yep. Okay, fantastic. Landing, to be honest, is one of the harder aspects of the game. I've seen a lot of discussion. There's Charlie. I've seen a lot of discussion on the Eurofly mailing list about people who have struggled, like hardcore struggled,
179.4/179.4 auto.
with this landing thing.
3.8 km 18 0 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna slow us down to landing speed,
Throttle reset 1.
which I believe I said was 194. I'm gonna set our flaps
290 feet.
to 4,
Set left position at attack. 4.
because we
Dashboard window.
definitely don't want to stall this bad boy.
Flaps set.
263 flaps at 4.
Again, checking our speed with R like a paranoid person.
252 flaps at 4.
I would be really embarrassing if in this demo I had a fatal stall and A, lost my training progress, but also
237 flaps
had a
at 4.
fatal stall while trying to demonstrate how blind people
229 flaps at 4.
flight sim in Eurofly and then fail at it.
222 flaps at 4.
I also need to decrease my altitude.
215
I'll
flaps
do
at
that
4.
in a minute. I'm focusing on the speed
209 flaps at 4. 207 flaps at 4. 205 flaps at 4.
for now.
202 flaps at 4. 200 flaps at 4. 198 flaps at 4. 196 flaps at 4. Choke off.
Flyover point
195 flaps
reached.
at 4.
Here we go. All right, now
Set altitude at attack. 20. Dashboard window.
head on down to 20 meters above the ground, which is also 20 meters above sea level because Iceland.
100. 90.
2.1 km 18 0 minutes.
80.
180.0/180.0.
70. Auto navigation off.
Combo box
60.
18 flaps. Dashboard window.
Capture the
50.
ILS.
40. 30. 20.
180.0 wheels.
Right.
1.0 km 18 0 minutes. 0.9 km 18 0 minutes. 180.0 wheels.
We are lined up with the ILS, which I check with S, so instead of showing me a direction, it shows me the heading, I guess, of the ILS for the runway. I sometimes, like I said, sometimes I have
Flyover
to...
point reached.
Alright, now this is where it's going to get interesting.
1.7 km north of 0 minutes. At 180.
Oh, great. We are perfectly lined up. This doesn't always happen for me. Sometimes I have to, course correct and do all this finagling. So, since we are so perfectly lined up,
1.0 km north of 0 minutes. Combo box of land asking for landing clearance. Dashboard window.
SK734. Landing clearance granted.
Control G for this bad boy.
Lowered.
And as soon as we hear the tone that we're over the runway,
180.0 wheels.
I'm going to
Throttle reset
cut
0.
engines.
10. Landing successful.
Yes. Okay, cool. Now, how the hell do we get from where we are to the parking? I'll show you. I'm going to hit G twice to disable ILS because we've landed.
0.
I'm going to set our flaps to 0 because we're on the ground. We don't really need flaps. And I'm going to
Flaps set.
switch my frequency to ground control for this airport, so 9 to figure out what frequency it is.
Combo box north of border ground control 118.1 collapsed. Dashboard window.
118.1, Alt F, 118.1.
North of border ground control. Dashboard window.
Then
46.
I'm going to
42.
choke us off here in a second at a ground speed of... Actually, I'm not. I'm going to stop and switch my plane out of flight mode into taxi mode before I request a... In order to end the flight, I actually have to request a gate and get told, you don't have passengers, go head to the main area. And so that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to let this plane coast to a stop. I do have brakes.
11.
I can hit dash. And hold dash down. And we are now stopped. I don't know that that stops the plane much faster, though, than just letting it coast with no thrust. So,
Tack.
taxi. taxi mode.
Combo box mode asking for boarding. Engines asking for permission. Fuel asking for gate asking for gate gate assignment.
Gate assignment.
Dashboard window.
SK734. You do not have any passengers on board. You can taxi to parking.
Where the hell's parking? Airport properties with shift enter will tell us.
Combo box pilot top.
So we landed on runway 18. So we actually want to look at the pathway to taxi to runway 0 in this case.
S top pin public pilot pivot ground approach. Airport description runway 36 and trans 18. Bravo Victor Charlie 7 service. Pin anchor line service and runway 3618 1499 M.
I lied, it's actually 36. Which is the same as 0. That's interesting, because I did see it referred to as runway 0 somewhere not too long ago, but that's okay.
And trans 36. Bravo 200.
Okay, so we're going to taxi on to Bravo. Once we get to Bravo, we'll follow that.
And trans service. Anchor main areas number of gates. Main area southwest.
And we want to end up in a southwesterly direction. I'm going to warn you, taxiing through airports is one of the things I kind of suck at, but we're just going to go for it.
Bravo preset 5.
Full speed ahead, sort of. I'm going to get us up to 30 or so kph, probably 20. 20 is my usual safe taxi speed, but it's going to take a really long time to get where we want to go.
13.
At 20.
15. 17. 18. 18. 19. 20. Choke off Bravo reset 1.
Control delete to choke that off. And we'll just kind of mosey on down. I hope that this demo has been enjoyable for you and kind of given you an idea of what it's like to play Eurofly. If you are blind and play Eurofly, I hope this demo has given you some ideas as to how to succeed at some of the more challenging bits that I've seen people struggle with, like ILS runways and things like that. If you are sighted, if you want to play, just, for fun, you can...
Bravo.
South.
Bravo.
And I'm going to go west on Bravo, I think. Once we hit Bravo, I'll check.
Bravo.
I can't explain this right now because this is a lot
Bravo.
to focus on.
Bravo.
153 M. 142 M.
I will go west in a moment.
107 M. 180 M.
Oh, how embarrassing!
Bravo. My 0 354.
36.
354. 354. 355. 356. 356. 357. 357. 358. 358. 359. 359.
36.
30.
I have to go west, actually.
36.
My 0 275.
36.
275. 276. 277. Runway 3618.
Shit!
276. 275. 273. 271 west. 269.
Bravo.
260. 266. 265. 265.
Ah!
Bravo preset 0.
Cool. I was afraid this would happen. I'm not gonna even bother to try and get myself out of this mess. I don't have to. I should, but
My 0.
I don't have to. I can end the flight here. It counts as successfully completed. And when I restart, it will put me back lined up where I need to be to go make another flight. It's going to take longer than I want to spend on this to try and undo this right now. So if I hit F4,
Press enter to quit.
I will press enter to quit.
Eurofly
Training.
Cool.
Eurofly. At Eurofly.
Exit.
So other than the really ridiculous ending, that was fine. At least we landed, right? We're going to count it as a win because we landed. We didn't end up as a puddle on the surface of Iceland or the Iceland Sea. Eurofly.stefankiss.sk is the website if you want to check out Eurofly and download the beta for yourself. I'll post the link in the description. And I may turn this into a series. There was a person who was making Eurofly tutorials for a while. He hasn't made an English tutorial for a minute. And as I get new planes, I may make more tutorials. I may also make a tutorial of what a successful taxi through an airport looks like, because it's not that. That was many things. Successful is not a word that I would use, and I know what I did. I accidentally turned east and I needed to go west. But yeah, like I said, it's fine. The flight's completed. We're exiting.
Eurofly free. Items view list.
And thanks for watching. I hope you found this at the very least entertaining. I'll see you all probably in the next live stream is the next time I'll see you. If enough people want, though, like I said, I can make more tutorials. Have a lovely day.
Start window. Eurofly free.